Cookies and personal information. The way that we see personal information, it'll be about an identifiable individual, and not just if it doesn't have the identifiable individual, but if there's a serious likelihood that information can be combined with other information in order to identify the person. So if we think about that with respect to the OBA, remember that the purpose of the cookie is to put together a detailed profile of an individual in order to have targeted advertisement to that individual. So in other words, by tracking the location, the length of time people spend on a website, the purchases, the shopping habits, you're basically creating a super profile that is more descriptive than previously contemplated, very rich with respect to its temporal and qualitative elements in terms of describing an individual. And that is why our office does generally see cookies as personal information. With regard to the guidelines themselves, they really came out of consultations that happened in 2010. And these consultations were carried out publicly and related to online tracking, profiling, and targeting. Although online behavioral advertising wasn't the focus of the consultation, the discussion continuously gravitated to this area. So what did we learn? Well, we heard that businesses were saying that there's benefits to behavioral advertising, that being increased customer loyalty and decreased frustration, as that they're not getting inundated with all these ads. As well, we heard that small and medium-sized enterprises had access to a broader range of advertisements. Obviously, in terms of consumer benefits, we've all heard about the benefit of having the free online content that's associated with online advertising. However, we did find several issues. And what it really comes down to, in terms of the issues, in a nutshell, is that the policies were long, legalistic, confusing, and that in and of itself cascaded into rendering consent to be not meaningful. So, with respect to the guidelines themselves, they're released in December, and they're meant to provide guidance to various organizations, the website operators, browser developers, and advertisers. And the key to the guidelines is that collecting for behavioral advertising purposes must be clearly informed. You must clearly inform individuals of the nature of the collection, use, and disclosure of the personal information in order to obtain consent in advance. The required form of consent varies depending on the circumstances, but under certain circumstances, implied consent or opt-out consent is considered to be sufficient. And these are the circumstances under which we would consider the conditions for opt-out. First, individuals must be made aware of the purposes for the tracking in a clear and obvious manner. That means that this is not buried in the fine print in the privacy policy, but is very apparent and out there in clear and understandable language. Individuals are informed of these purposes before collection, and they're provided with an easily available opt-out. Again, they don't have to search through the settings or go through link to link to link in order to find a way to opt out of the cookies. As well, opt-outs should take immediate effect and be persistent. They shouldn't have to wait a period of time in order for the opt-out to take effect. And the next time that they log into that same website, they shouldn't have to re-opt out in order to maintain their privacy preferences. Collection and use of sensitive information is limited, and we're talking, for example, about health information. Of course, data being destroyed and anonymized as soon as possible.